She retired from the United States Army and the National Guard October of 2015 after more than 37 years of service to our country. In that time, she served at all levels of command. In 2011, she was appointed by then Governor John Kasich to a cabinet position as Adjunct General of the state of Ohio, commanding 17,000 service members of the Ohio National Guard, the Ohio Naval Militia, and the Ohio Military Reserve. She served as Adjunct General until January of 2015. Her career culminated by serving as Special Assistant Vice Chief of the National Guard Bureau in Washington, D.C. Major General Ashenhurst has received numerous awards and decorations, including the Army Distinguished Service Medal, the Legion of Merit, Meritorious Silver Medal with 1 silver and 1 bronze oak leaf cluster, and the Joint Service Commendation Medal. Please join me in welcoming Major General Deborah Ashenhurst.
Thank you, thank you. I have the envious position of speaking during lunch because I know you're not going to nod off while you're eating, right? I feel really short here. Hey. All right, well, you got a lot of what we do in our agency, the Ohio Department of Veteran Services, from Ryan, but let me start by saying, hey, thanks for having me. More important, thanks for coming today. Thanks for having that open mind, being willing to learn and being willing to see what else is out there. And I know you get some CLE for it as well, and that's fabulous. But to take this interest in our military and our military families and our veterans, it makes my heart happy, all that. I want to thank the justices for including me in this, but moreover for their passion for what they do for our military members and our veterans. I've never, particularly non-military members, somebody who hasn't served in the military, to take up the causes that they have taken up for our military members is just incredible, and I'm always in awe. But what really is, particularly when you talk about Justice Stratton, I've never known anybody that can make connections the way she makes connections. She'll invite you to lunch, and you think you're going to have a social lunch. She's really connecting you to somebody else. I want to make sure you know so-and-so, because I think your paths are crossing, and you could probably benefit from each other. But then to have her partner up with Justice Kennedy and see what the two of them can do to break down barriers, bust down doors, and make things easier for our veterans and military members, I just can't thank the two of you enough for what you do for us. You know, I work for a great guy. I work directly for the governor, and his tasking to me is, General, go make Ohio the most veteran-friendly state in the Union. I'll try to quantify that. And that's my challenge, and that's what I'm here to do. To dovetail with what you've heard a little bit already today, and our governor, lieutenant governor, are being very aggressive of bringing business to Ohio, to increasing the opportunities for Ohioans to have jobs. But one of the things that's always asked is, can you ensure I will have the employees I need to run my organization, to run my company, to produce my product, whatever it is, if I move to Ohio? And there's almost always a secondary question in there, is that, do you have veterans that we can hire? And that humbles me, but it makes me very happy, because that means there are that many organizations that understand the benefit of hiring our previous military members and those that have that experience of the discipline and all those things that Ryan talked to you about for their business, and they see the benefit. So the question is, how do we make Ohio the most veteran-friendly state in the Union? So we've got to lean forward in that, and we've tried to quantify it and figure out how we can move forward, where the gaps are, how to fill those gaps. Because once we find the gap, we usually have a lot of people willing to help us fill it and make it better. So, you know, one of the things we have to do is connect our veterans to the resources that they have earned through their service. And we do that through our county veteran service organizations, through our VA, through the VISN that Ryan had talked about, and find out all those things that they have. Because if they're getting everything they earned from their service in the military, it'll make them better employees, better citizens, and happier that they have everything coming to them that they've earned. We have to strengthen our relationships with all the veteran organizations. And there are a lot of veteran organizations, not just in Ohio, but obviously across the world. We're looking at nonprofit organizations. I have an advisory committee that's made up of members of all these other veterans organizations. Congressionally chartered military organizations, and those are the big ones you hear about, the VFWs, the American Legions, the AMVETS, all those sort of things. But there are also other little organizations out there making a difference in the lives of our veterans and our military members, from Bunker Labs that's helping people be entrepreneurs and start their business, to Team Red, White, and Blue that helps connect veterans to positive things that they can do in the communities. What we find a lot of is the current era veterans don't just want to sit on the bar stool next to another veteran and tell war stories. They want to make a difference in their community. They want to continue to give. They want to continue to make a difference. So these organizations like Bunker Labs, Team Red, White, and Blue, and those sort of places are really helping them make those connections and make a difference in our communities. We advocate for veterans, and we call ourselves the voice of the veteran, because we have to find out where the resources are lacking and be their voice to make sure that we can help them get what they need. And I tell you, this is a very veteran-friendly legislature. And I say this one is, but I have to tell you, from my years as the Adjutant General all the way through, we have a legislature that if you just make a whisper of something that maybe we're lacking in the state of Ohio that would attract veterans, keep veterans, attract more military organizations, they're all over it. And they want to figure out how to make it happen. We have great support, great bipartisan support. It's the one thing that will unite all of our elected officials, is if there's something they can do for the military or something that they can do for veterans. What's really important, though, is to attract veterans to Ohio, is to facilitate that successful transition. And as Ryan told you, there's about 10,000 that make that transition back to Ohio every year. Sounds like a big number, but not when you look at the 750,000 veterans that we have in Ohio. But these programs that you've been hearing about this morning help them successfully navigate that transition from where they don't have to worry about what they're going to put on every morning to going into the work environment, acting appropriately, dressing appropriately, and being able to make a difference for an employer. And I'll tell you what else they do in helping that employer. They help the team in which they're assigned. So you put a military member or a veteran onto one of your civilian teams in your agency, in your company, you'll be surprised at how collectively the team gets better, and how that veteran, that military person, will pool people together and help them collaborate better and do things that obviously will help the business in the long run. I mean, expanding our workforce efforts, you heard Ryan, and for him to be able to get into the TAP programs, the transition assistance programs, as folks are coming out of the military, is huge for us. And I'll tell you, I think it was Wisconsin that got way out ahead of us. And they've been doing this for a couple years before we went into COVID shutdown, to the point where they're even over in Japan, talking to people who are transitioning out of the military in Japan. Hey, come to our state. And we're like, hey, wait a minute. Ohio's a lot better than Wisconsin. We just have to get out there and sell it, right? So he's been working with Department of Development and different organizations in the state that want to hire veterans, and we're figuring out how to do that, because Wisconsin shouldn't get all the good vets, right? Ohio needs those. Had the opportunity just this week to talk to the Department of Education, because that troops to teachers. Anybody ever heard of troops to teachers? Yeah, it was a big thing I remembered from the past. It's not anymore. Evidently, the federal funding has fallen. We're in the sunset of it. So Ohio is trying to figure out how to set up our own state type of transition for military members and veterans to go into the workforce. Because I tell you, my governor says to me, hey, General, what's happening with troops to teachers? I want veterans in there influencing the minds of our young children in the schools. They will make a difference in the attitudes of those children going forward. They are the best mentors we can put in the school. Go fix it, kind of thing. Like, well, I tuck my tail between my legs and go run off to Department of Education like, hey, I kind of need to be educated real quick on what's going on with troops to teachers and how we can make this work. But that's the kind of directors I get from this guy that's running Ohio, that wants to make sure that everybody has the opportunities to be the best that they can be. I'm helping our student veterans. As you heard, there's a veteran service office in all of our state universities and colleges, and that's helped so that because a lot of times the veterans that are coming back to go to school aren't the 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and they don't exactly fit in that environment. So for them to have a separate place where they can go where they maybe get a little more respect, maybe a little more quiet time, and aren't overwhelmed with some of the activities of the younger folks just starting their lives is really important to them and makes them feel comfortable and appreciated in that college environment as well. But let's not also forget that GI Bill that this current era of veterans get, they also pass on to their family members. So we have children of military and we have spouses of military that also get to go to college because of that service of that military member. So we have to make sure that they also are received well in our colleges and universities. So that work always goes on to make sure we maximize, because the amount of money that comes, now this is the business I have to sell to the governor, the amount of money that comes into this state through the GI Bill and the housing allowance that comes along with those service members coming here to go to school is significant. So we want to make sure that we make this good for them and that they'll tell their fellow veterans, you want to come to school in Ohio. You want to come to Ohio. I don't care where you're from. Don't go to Wisconsin. Come to Ohio. We think an important part of our job is to help veterans tell their story. Everybody has a story, and I can tell you, I can recount a time I went to our veterans home down in Georgetown and literally sat on the floor at the knee of a World War II veteran who was very articulate in telling me how he was part of liberating a concentration camp in Germany and was describing very vividly to me those people who were so thin their skin was hanging off their bones and how it made him feel and how they were so welcoming and appreciative for what the Americans had done. And then of course, 2 minutes later, he couldn't remember what he had for lunch. But he could really articulate to me his service. And I think that we need to make sure those stories are preserved so that people don't forget the difference our service members have made. And then the guy sitting across from him is like, hey, come here. I want to tell you about my experience in the Korean War. So we need to make sure that we capture that. Those guys aren't going to be here for long. But I want to tell you, we also have to capture the stories of our current era of veterans, those just coming back. I had a nephew that as he was headed off to his deployment, I'm like, Daniel, you need to keep a diary of what happens with your involvement in this war. Oh, Aunt Deb, I'm keeping my platoon logs. I'm like, no, I don't mean just what your platoon did. I want you to capture your emotions, what was going through your head, your thought process. Oh, I'll keep my platoon log. But someday I just think of how valuable that would be for his family, for others who are trying to capture the experience of military members. Telling our stories is important. But we try to do it in many ways. We have a very active social media presence. If you aren't on Facebook with us, get on Facebook with us. Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I don't even know what Twitter and Instagram really does, but it's a good presence for us. But we use that platform to tell a lot of the stories of our veterans, what we do. We just had our induction ceremonies this year for our Ohio Veterans Hall of Fame. And that isn't talking about veterans and what they did during their service. That's recognizing the incredible accomplishments of veterans after they came home and hung up that uniform the last time and continued to serve in our communities, our cities, our state, our nation, in some cases across the world. I'll tell you, in just this year's class, we inducted a number of judges, an assistant secretary of defense, an assistant secretary of the Army. I mean, these aren't slouches that have come, that Ohio has borne and put out there to serve. It's pretty amazing. We're amping up our outreach and connecting and listening. I had a fabulous visit this week to Portsmouth, Ohio. When you hear Portsmouth, Ohio, what do you think? Drugs, drugs, drugs. The terrible epidemic, the plight of some of those towns down along the river when we lost the ironworks and all that sort of stuff. And that's what you hear about. But let me tell you, there's a veteran that came home to Portsmouth and said, this isn't the city I left. This isn't the city I want to live in. I'm going to make this better. And he has made it better by opening, of all things, a CrossFit gym. And he opened that CrossFit gym right next to the counseling center for addiction rehabilitation. He has partnered with the counseling center. So as folks, what they realize, and I'm not the scientist or the sociologist or anything, but there's a connection with physical well-being, physical action, and taking care of yourself, along with the mental and emotional part of coming clean, of giving up that addiction. So that's what he works with. So he works hand in glove with this counseling center to provide this activity that's all about teamwork. And I don't know if any of you are CrossFit people, but evidently it's not something you do alone. It's a team that does things on crosswork. You have a partner you're working with to do this CrossFit. So that integrates them into society, and that sense of owing something to somebody else, having some duty to show up when you say you're going to show up, and all those sort of things. And honestly, as people are coming clean and ready to go back in the workforce, he's hiring some of them. He now has a small business where he creates, of all things, deodorant and first aid creams and things like that. So now he's hiring these rehabilitated people. And he's not just working with veterans, but anybody. And he's cleaning up the streets of Portsmouth, one addict at a time. And I love that story. Walked down the street and had lunch. Is it me? I back off? So right down the street is a restaurateur who is another veteran who came home and said, oh, this isn't the town I left. This isn't how I want it. So he opened a restaurant where he also hires people who were formerly on the street or had addiction issues, and tries to make sure that, because we know part of getting clean and staying clean is having a job and having social requirements of you. So awesome stuff like that I get to go exploit and find out about and help people do it. Now, and I'll tell you, that veteran that opened that CrossFit gym says, I'm not done. I've got to figure out what to do next. I'm trying to train other CrossFit facilities to do the same. Or maybe CrossFit facilities can team up with the National Guard and the reserve units right in their neighborhoods and help them, because those that are coming home with mental issues and maybe PTS, or just everybody who comes back from war, or just anybody that's had things happen in their lives, can really benefit from physical exertion and teamwork and all that. So they're trying to do those sort of things still. I love these stories. It's also important for me to help recognize the 67,000 women veterans in Ohio. You may not realize it, but women veterans, a lot of them don't identify themselves as veterans. Oh, I just did my one stint. I'm not a veteran. Hey, see that guy over there in the veteran t-shirt and the veteran hat? How many years do you think he put in? Yet he realizes he's a veteran. So helping the women realize that their service was valuable and the service they gave does make them a veteran, and that they need to embrace that. And they, and some of it is justified, their apprehension. Sometimes when women have parked in the veteran parking spot at the Home Depot, I understand that they have been confronted by people that think they are inappropriately parking there. Now, I would challenge women to not get angry about that, but see that as an opportunity to educate. And you can be funny about it. Say, oh, you want to compare DD-214s or something like that? Or just say, yeah, my husband served also, and I'm not taking his spot. Or, yeah, isn't it cool that they offer this for us veterans? And just leave it at that instead of getting angry. What a great opportunity we have to educate. But I also realize that you're not going to catch me wearing a veteran hat. 37 years in the military, I've had enough of wearing hats. So maybe I need to be the t-shirt wearer. And honest to goodness, I'd never had a veteran t-shirt until last year. My granddaughters gave me my first veteran t-shirt. And I realized that I probably need to wear it. If anybody, shouldn't I be setting the example of showing that women are veterans also? Thank you. It's really important that we do preserve the history of our veterans and the legacy that Ohioans have contributed to our victories and our wars and the efforts that we make. And we do have the huge vault of DD-214s. We have records going back to the Civil War of the veterans that served in Ohio. No, we don't have everybody's DD-214s, but if we have it, we can get it out to you. And sometimes you just have to go to that record center in St. Louis where everything burned up in the fire and they can never find it again. But we work through that. We have a veterans bonus program. For veterans that serve, have an opportunity for a one-time payout of a bonus. It's kind of a way that Ohio says, thank you. And we're trying to run that. Of course, that's about to sunset now that Afghanistan is closed down. That starts a time clock that veterans have 3 years to apply for that. And so that will be exhausting itself. Praise God, it exhausts itself, and that we don't go into another war that would make more Ohioans eligible for that. Strengthening our alliance with other state agencies. You know, realize that veterans are a cross-cut of society, right? So we have partners that deal with cross-sections of Ohio. So whether it's the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, because some of our veterans have the same issues as Ohioans in that world, whether it's dealing with the issues of suicide that plague our environment today and our veterans at a little higher rate than civilians. It's important for us to, we can't do that alone. The experts on that are in mental health and addiction services. They aren't in the Department of Veterans Services. So we need their help to do that, and we work collaboratively with that. But I'll tell you, Department of Aging, how about license plates in the Department of Safety? You know, you realize that about everything we need for veterans, everything we should be providing for veterans, is the same stuff we have to provide to regular old citizens that maybe didn't wear the cloth of our nation, right? So we partner with all those different agencies to make sure that they don't forget. And I frequently will just want to say, if you're putting together a public service announcement, just have somebody in there with a veteran hat, just to make sure that that veteran can connect to and recognize you're talking to them as well. So if you have any say in any of that stuff, please take that away, if nothing else. The mental health issue we talked about, and just caring for veterans. Ryan touched on it just briefly. The largest portion of our budget, of your tax dollars that you give to me, thank you very much, go to running our 2 veterans' homes. So it's really to house and take care of those that don't have another way to be cared for and taken care of as they go into need nursing care or memory care. But we also have a little part of our home up in Sandusky, Ohio, that is called a domiciliary. It really is a place for people that live that don't need health care specifically, don't need that day-to-day health care, but need a place to live. And if they weren't there, they would probably be on the street. Many of them have problems with addictions and issues that we can help them with. And so it's a great place for people to put there. And what I do love, the things that we hear from, obviously it's a nursing home. People die pretty much daily in nursing homes, including ours. But what I love is when the families come back and say, my mom or my dad was dying until he or she went to live in the Ohio Veterans Home, and they started living again. And there's just something about being in an environment where everybody knows where you've been, the commitment you've made, the difference you've made, the sacrifices you and your family have made that make it a really comfortable place to live and to be engaged and active again. Now, I would tell you, COVID has taken its toll, not necessarily on the losses of people with COVID, although we have had 4 COVID-related deaths in our homes, and we've had COVID hit our homes, and I would tell you we were very active in prevention before it hit and mitigating it when it did hit. So I really believe we saved lives with the actions we took. But there's just something about isolation. When we told the veterans they had to live in their little room, and we would bring meals to them, and they didn't even get to, because there was no congregate dining, nothing, they couldn't get together, and that was hard. And we were pretty creative. I mean, having bingo, hallway bingo, where everybody from their room was trying to track their card while we were shouting numbers from the hallways, things like that. Massive amounts of crossword puzzle books and word search books and all those sort of things to try to entertain them. But I just remember going up and talking to one of the veterans who was standing out there. He says, can we just turn on the TVs out here so we could come out here and watch TV together? Like, no, we can't. We don't want you watching TV together because we don't want you to share what one of you may bring in. So it's been hard, but I tell you, we're opening back up, and it's so much better that families can come visit. I mean, we did the window visits, but window visits didn't always work, particularly for dementia patients. We did the iPad visits. That was really confusing for some of the veterans. What's that? My loved one doing on TV? That's not TV, that's an iPad. But, all good stuff. So we were very proactive in trying to keep them engaged, but it was hard. And it's so nice to be coming out of that now. But even though this Veterans Day, I mean, I had the best boss. So as planning for Veterans Day, my boss says, I'm going to your veterans' homes. Let's figure it out. So we started the day up in Milan, I think we call it in Ohio, at the high school of Max Soviak. Max Soviak is our most recent fatality of the war. He was blown up in the bomb at Kabul as we were trying to exercise our exit strategy out of Afghanistan, and he was one of our losses there. Max was had 12 siblings and a very active family. So the governor got very engaged with them. It's hard not to. They're a very engaging family. And he said, he was asked, and he said, yes, I will come and talk at your high school on Max's first Veterans Day that he won't be here to participate in. So we went up there and started the day there. And then we went to Sandusky, the Veterans Home in Sandusky. And then, unfortunately, we had to wave him off. He couldn't go to our Georgetown home because we had an active case of COVID. And one of our staff members who had been throughout the home the day before, so we couldn't take that risk. So, but that's just the kind of boss I have, and that's just the kind of respect he shows for our veterans and the engagement that we have. So I think I've shoved in as much information as I can in a short amount of time to talk with you, but I would like to have a few minutes if you have any questions or anything else you'd like for me to share with you about what we do at the Department of Veteran Services to honor and show respect to those who've served our great nation that land here in Ohio. Oh man, I'm good. No questions. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate your attention, even though you were eating.